4 hours, the palace sat in an unsettling silence, no briefings, no statements, no carefully staged smiles, until a sudden release from the royal press office stopped the nation cold. A devastating announcement from King Charles, delivered in a tone so detached it felt unreal, carried a name no one expected: Princess Beatrice, followed by a single, chilling word title. Whatever decision had been made was not impulsive. It was calculated and long in the making. The day itself had begun with a sense of unease, as royal staff moved quickly through Buckingham Palace with lowered voices and averted eyes, their usual routines disrupted as media briefings were abruptly cancelled, aides confined to restricted areas, and once buzzing phones fell eerily silent. Every corridor felt watched, every door firmly closed. Then, at precisely 11:30 a.m., an alert flashed across the devices of royal correspondents throughout the UK, an urgent statement from His Majesty King Charles III. Within moments, journalists were on edge, aware that something momentous was unfolding, though few could have predicted its nature. When the statement finally arrived, it was striking in its cold precision, offering no warmth, no historical reflection, and no personal tribute, only a stark explanation citing the modernization of the monarchy and the need to streamline royal duties to align with the crown's evolving public role. And then came the blow that left the country reeling. Effective immediately, adjustments had been made to the formal royal titles held by Princess Beatrice. York to many, the word landed like thunder. Princess Beatrice had never been viewed as a controversial figure. She was often praised for avoiding the chaos that followed Harry, Meghan, and even her own father, which made the timing of this decision all the more baffling. Why now, and why her? The ambiguity of the palace's statement only fueled public outrage and speculation, as it failed to clarify whether her title had been revoked, downgraded, or merely altered, yet the phrase "effective" immediately told the public everything it needed to know. This was not a discussion, it was an execution. Even more chilling was the palace's refusal to elaborate. Reporters flooded officials with questions: what prompted this move, why at this moment, and whether Beatrice herself had been aware, but Buckingham Palace responded with total silence. That silence was not passive, it was tactical, signaling that the truth was not merely hidden, but deliberately buried. The message beneath the royal language was unmistakable: titles are not permanent, and even loyalty has limits. As whispers spread across media networks and social platforms, theories multiplied, some calling it punishment, others suggesting the opening move in a larger internal war within the monarchy. Yet the most unsettling explanation may be the simplest. King Charles is consolidating power, and no one, no matter how uncontroversial they appear, is untouchable. Beatrice had long been seen as the quiet survivor of royal turmoil, soft-spoken, cautious, and deliberately out of the spotlight, which is precisely why this moment feels so alarming, because when the palace turns on someone like her, it is never about personality, only power. Something shifted behind closed doors, something that either forced the king's hand or revealed a truth the monarchy could not afford to withstand, and history has shown that when the crown begins to erase titles, it is rarely without consequence. The shockwaves of the announcement were not just about what was said, but about who it targeted, transforming an unlikely, overlooked royal into the focal point of what now feels like a calculated and deeply deliberate reckoning. Whispers about redefining the roles of non-working royals had been circulating for months, alongside discreet reports of a risk profile assessment led by King Charles's closest aides, all driven by a singular objective: eliminate liability, refine the monarchy's image, and sever ties with anyone whose bloodline or associations threatened its carefully curated future. Princess Beatrice, despite her lack of personal controversy, fell into a category no monarch wants to confront: legacy entanglement. Her unwavering loyalty to her father, Prince Andrew, once admired as familial strength, had quietly transformed into a liability, because no matter how distant she stood from scandal, its shadow followed her, growing heavier within palace walls than anyone was willing to publicly admit. This was not simply guilt by association, it was optics. Beatrice continued to attend royal events, walk beside the king, and pose for photographs while remaining tethered, however, silently to a figure the crown was desperate to erase. And when those images resurfaced, they told a story Charles could not undo. Behind the scenes, Beatrice reportedly tried to navigate the storm with dignity, but her silence on key matters divided opinion, seen by some as restraint and by others as quiet defiance. The king's inner circle, increasingly strategic and emboldened, began to view her as a symbol of the old guard, and in Charles's streamlined reign, the old guard had no place. Complicating matters further was a collapsing agreement made years earlier, allowing minor royals, including Beatrice, to retain titles without frontline duties, an arrangement once rooted in goodwill but now deemed unsustainable in a monarchy under pressure, where strategy had replaced sentiment. This was no public relations misstep or accidental fallout. It was execution by design, a royal verdict delivered not with spectacle but with the toll of a funeral bell. The king did not shout or explain, he simply closed a chapter, and the moment Princess Beatrice's title appeared alongside words like restructuring, duty, and crown integrity, the message became impossible to ignore. The midday statement, dressed in the polished language of modernization and institutional strength, carried the unmistakable weight of punishment, its true meaning screaming beneath the surface. And then came the words that froze the nation effective, immediately signaling no transition, no reconciliation, and no public defense, only a cold, final shift enacted in silence. Buried within royal platitudes was a chilling declaration: service to the protection of the institution comes first, even if it demands the sacrifice of family. Analysts quickly agreed this was not a gentle repositioning or symbolic adjustment, but a decisive move, whether demotion, restriction, or outright erasure, unprecedented in its directness toward someone as unlikely and unassuming as Princess Beatrice. Across all interpretations, the conclusion was unavoidable. Princess Beatrice was no longer being treated as a royal asset. The language surrounding her removal was stark and clinical, devoid of gratitude or acknowledgement of service, framing her instead as a structural element being extracted for the sake of operational integrity, a tone the monarchy reserves not for valued figures, but for perceived threats. Perhaps the most unsettling revelation did not come from the announcement itself, but from what followed, or rather, what didn't. A complete media blackout was imposed. Beatrice was not permitted to speak, offer reflection, or address the public in any form, her silence enforced and unnaturally controlled. Then came the whispers. Insiders claimed she received no warning, no private audience, no advance notice, learning of the decision the same way the public did through the broadcast, an act of ruthlessness that stunned even seasoned royal watchers. It wasn't just her title that was altered, it was her dignity that was stripped alongside it. As the nation processed the shock, a darker question began to surface. What had forced King Charles to take such an extreme step? Inside the palace, titles are not ceremonial ornaments, they are currency, and when that currency is revoked, it signals that someone has crossed the one unforgivable line, becoming dangerous to the crown. Palace whispers suggest this move was not policy-driven or spontaneous, but reactive, triggered by something explosive enough to send the king's inner circle into immediate damage control mode. Within hours, murmurs spread through Whitehall and among royal staff of a classified exchange intercepted documents, private recordings, or unauthorized messages that were never meant to surface, but did. At the center of it all was Beatrice, not as the architect of the crisis, but as the carrier, someone who came into possession of information powerful enough to force the monarchy's hand. Officially, the details remain sealed, but leaked suggestions point toward sensitive personal correspondence, internal financial inconsistencies, or strategic plans that contradicted the palace's public narrative, and whatever the truth may be, its impact was decisive. Princess Beatrice became a liability the crown could no longer afford to ignore. Too dangerous to keep inside the system, that was the conclusion King Charles's advisors reportedly reached almost instantly. Veterans from his Prince of Wales years moved quickly, adopting a single directive: contain the risk immediately. There would be no questions, no clarification, only isolation. That meant silencing Princess Beatrice, stripping her of the power and protection her title provided, and cutting her loose from the institution she had trusted her entire life. Yet the most painful twist came from sources close to the princess, who insist she was never trying to expose the monarchy at all. She was trying to protect someone who had confided in her out of desperation, not defiance. If true, Beatrice wasn't collateral damage. She was a shield, absorbing the blow so someone else wouldn't have to. The palace, however, showed no interest in intent. There was no dialogue, no inquiry, only swift and public punishment, force typically reserved for scandals far graver than anything ever linked to her name. This fuels an even darker theory, that Beatrice had refused to comply. Insiders suggest she was privately asked or ordered to sign something, deny a truth she knew, or betray someone she loved, and when she didn't bend, the palace broke her. If so, this was never about reputation, it was about control. Imagine beginning the day as a princess and ending it as a warning and example to every royal who dares question the crown. That, insiders say, is exactly what happened. No meeting, no explanation, no family defense, only silence, followed by a headline that shattered her world. The palace didn't just remove her title, it removed her protection. And when Beatrice realized no one was coming to save her, not even those she trusted most, something inside her reportedly collapsed. As the statement hit the press, Her world unraveled quietly behind palace walls. She had sensed tension before, but nothing prepared her for the brutality of the moment. The title wasn't gently withdrawn, it was surgically ripped from her identity, and not a single person stood between her and the blade. Those close to her described disbelief giving way to confusion collapsing into humiliation, not grief over a ceremonial label, but devastation at the way it was done. In that moment, her royal blood meant nothing. She was no longer the king's niece, she was a liability, discarded without warning. In the hours that followed, her isolation became complete. She could not speak, could not respond, her voice locked behind protocol and enforced silence while the nation dissected her downfall in real time. For someone raised where image is survival, that silence was its own execution. But the deepest betrayal wasn't institutional, it was personal. Beatrice believed family would stand by her, that anyone would reach out. No one did. Not cousins, not uncles, not those she had once supported when their own reputations were under threat. The silence was absolute. Desperate, she reportedly contacted a figure she believed to be an ally, only to receive nothing, no reply, no acknowledgement. A message seen and ignored. Insiders say that moment broke her, because she finally understood the truth. She had become a symbol of risk, and in the monarchy, risk is exiled. Stripped of the identity that defined her, Princess Beatrice was left alone with the most terrifying question of all: who was she now? Family? Or was she simply something to be managed, silenced, and forgotten? The more Beatrice considered it, the clearer the truth became. The decision to strip her title had nothing to do with public service, duty, or protocol. It was about eliminating unpredictability, removing access, killing leverage, and, perhaps deep down, something she had always feared. She had known this day might come, but never like this, not so sudden, not so absolute, not so final. What made the tragedy darker still was the suspicion that she was not the first target. The palace called it modernization, but insiders whispered a far grimmer term: purge. Removing one royal's title sets a precedent, and precedent is how monarchies quietly eliminate threats without open confrontation. According to these whispers, Beatrice wasn't punished for wrongdoing. She was removed because she embodied a future King Charles could no longer tolerate. Once the crown starts pruning branches, it rarely stops at one. What the official statement framed as a modernized monarchy may have sounded like efficiency, but in practice, it appeared to be a systematic clearing of the royal chessboard, a consolidation of power that could not tolerate loose ends. Beatrice, despite her polished, scandal-free image, had become one of those loose ends. Her advisors, long wary of the York family's lingering ties to past scandals, reportedly viewed her not as a threat of her own making, but as a symbol, a silent bridge between a troubled past and a controlled present, a reminder the monarchy was desperate to erase. So the decision moved swiftly and decisively. Before the public could process, before a word could be spoken, her name was excised from duty rosters, official roles, and future projections. No interviews, no panels, no family conference, only a top-down directive that executed the removal. The impact rippled instantly. Minor royals across the extended family reportedly began to panic. If Beatrice, quiet, elegant, scandal-free, could be erased so easily, what did that mean for the rest of them? Rumors spread that Princess Eugenie was next, that titles, honors, and access were no longer tied to public service, but to obedience. And the true tragedy of it all was not political or procedural, it was profoundly personal. A family turning on one of its own, treating its blood as expendable in the name of control. Within the palace walls, members were no longer seen as family, they were political liabilities. Princess Beatrice was no longer a daughter, niece, or cousin. She had become an asset too close to the wrong truths, a symbol of the monarchy's vulnerability. And instead of protection, the crown chose to amputate her from within. Beneath the surface, a darker motive emerges. This purge may have had little to do with punishment at all, but everything to do with optics, with tightening the monarchy's image ahead of larger constitutional shifts, clearing a path for a leaner, more sanitized version of succession that erases the past and replaces it with a tightly controlled, brand-focused future. Just when the public thinks the story ends, a shocking detail surfaces that makes the action even more brutal. The official announcement was short, cold, and meticulously controlled, but what it left unsaid may have been the loudest statement in royal history. While the palace spoke in polished sentences, insiders began leaking the unspoken truth, an accusation so damning it could not be recorded openly. If the whispers are even half true, Beatrice didn't merely lose her title, she lost the monarchy's trust. And when the crown stops trusting you, it treats you as an enemy, not a relative. The phrasing of the statement was telling in its omissions. No reason, no incident, no hint of wrongdoing. In a monarchy obsessed with appearances, ambiguity is never accidental, it is strategic. Almost immediately, the vacuum was filled with leaks, not from attention-seeking staff, but from insiders burdened with conscience. Private reports allegedly circulated within the palace, detailing confidential communications, private emails, and sensitive exchanges, placing Beatrice at the center of a controversy that, if public, could have compromised more than her own position. The term haunting these reports was conflicting loyalties, not treason, but perhaps something far more dangerous: divided allegiance within a family that thrives on unity. Rumors suggested unauthorized communications with outside advisors, legal experts, and even non-royal family members critical of recent decisions. While none of this is confirmed, the mere suggestion sent the palace into overdrive. Then came the most explosive claim. Beatrice had access to information that could devastate reputations if revealed. Whether finances, private arrangements, or institutional misconduct remains unclear, but the fear it inspired was undeniable. According to insiders, the king's office acted swiftly to contain the risk. Silence, absolute and permanent, was demanded. Beatrice was expected to comply, to vanish without disruption. But she didn't, or hesitated just long enough to alarm the palace. In an institution like this, even perceived defiance is sufficient to trigger exile. The announcement that followed was more than punishment. It was a public demonstration of the consequences of holding secrets too long or refusing to surrender them. And while Beatrice has remained silent, the impact on the monarchy's image has been harder to contain, because once the public senses that something is being hidden, curiosity and suspicion cannot be controlled. Curiosity becomes suspicion, and suspicion becomes scrutiny. Now, royal watchers and insiders alike are asking the same question. What was so explosive that the palace chose to burn one of its own before it could surface? The institution's refusal to clarify has only deepened the mystery. The air around Buckingham Palace is no longer filled with reverence, it is filled with dread. And that leads to the most dangerous question of all. What happens when a royal refuses to disappear quietly? This is the part the palace cannot control, because titles can be stripped, but emotions cannot. Loyalty can be punished, but memory cannot be erased. Right now, insiders and observers alike are terrified of the same possibility. If Beatrice has been cornered, what will she do? Because the quietest royals are often the most dangerous when they finally stop being polite. And if Beatrice speaks even once, it could expose more than a scandal, it could reveal the monarchy's inner machinery. In the days following the announcement, the conversation shifted. No longer was it solely about what had been done to Beatrice. It became about what she might do next. Her imposed silence now carries weight, deliberate and heavy, each day of quiet amplifying tension, every hour of restraint deepening the palace's fear. Silence here does not signify compliance. It signals control, but also risk. And as public sympathy grows, confusion transforms into admiration. Beatrice, cast aside so publicly, so brutally, is becoming a figure of quiet rebellion. The beautiful daughter, the loyal niece, the princess who never sought power but had it stripped away as punishment. She has, willingly or not, become a symbol, and in the court of public opinion, symbols are powerful. Behind closed doors, the palace is not taking chances. Royal sources suggest new restrictions are being considered. Legal measures to block interviews, warnings against publishing memoirs, strategic leaks framing Beatrice as emotionally unstable or misguided. These are old tactics, familiar to a monarchy that knows how to quash dissent before it spreads, but this time, the public sees it coming, and that visibility is dangerous. Meanwhile, murmurs suggest Beatrice may be contemplating a radical move, stepping away from the monarchy entirely, leaving the royal machine on her own terms. If she does, it would shatter the carefully maintained illusion of unity and send a signal to other minor royals. Even silence and loyalty cannot guarantee safety. Insiders and even some palace staff now quietly suggest that defiance is survivable, but the emotional stakes are rising. The narrative has transformed into a standoff. Beatrice on one side, alone yet resolute, the palace on the other, fortified but visibly nervous. The emotional showdown feels inevitable. She was raised by the institution, protected by it, trained to defend it, and now she may be preparing to confront it. What makes the situation even more volatile is a growing belief within the establishment that King Charles may have overplayed his hand, that this decision, intended to secure control, may have done the opposite. Inside the palace, allies are quietly retreating, new alliances quietly forming. The cracks aren't just in public perception, they run through the monarchy itself. And then comes the final, chilling whisper, repeated by multiple insiders: she knows too much. That alone is enough to keep the palace awake at night. If this truly was the king's devastating decision, the deeper truth may be far darker than anyone is ready to admit. The headline may have been her title, but that might not have been the real target. In this monarchy, stripping one person isn't punishment, it's a message, a signal, a test. If King Charles was willing to devastate Beatrice publicly, it signals the palace is preparing for something bigger, something darker. Her title was the sacrifice. The real war has only begun. From the palace's perspective, this shocking decision was not personal or reactive, it was strategic. Removing Beatrice's title wasn't about ending her role, it was about initiating a recalibration of royal boundaries, redefining who belongs inside the firm and who does not, and drawing a line in the sand. The phrase whispered by those closest to the decision is chilling: obedience or erasure. That is now the standard. The monarchy has become less about tradition and more about control, tolerating no ambiguity, no divided loyalty, and no rogue players regardless of birthright or reputation. Beatrice's fate wasn't sealed by scandal, it was sealed by silence, a silence that made the institution nervous. Her punishment became performance, a public spectacle, a symbol to the entire royal ecosystem that quiet tolerance is over. Every royal is either part of the machine or a liability to be stripped down, rebranded, or removed. This is not the monarchy of pageantry and warmth, it is a colder, faster, more corporate crown, acting with the precision of strategy, not sentiment. Meanwhile, the public is beginning to see through the facade. Duty and service ring hollow against the backdrop of Beatrice's quiet exile, and citizens are asking harder questions. What is the monarchy truly protecting: honor or secrets, stability or silence? In this painful shift, Beatrice's suffering has become larger than her story. It is a symbol of the brutal calculus behind the crown's decisions, revealing that even its own blood can be sacrificed if it preserves the throne. And this may not be the end. Sources suggest that Beatrice's announcement was the first in a sequence, a template, not a conclusion. Draft statements for others are reportedly written, signed off, and waiting. Which names are on that list? No one will say. Because if the palace could take Princess Beatrice's title today, tomorrow it could take anyone's, and the next name may already be decided.